What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Unit 4, Triangles, Trigonometry, Worksheet 414. Now we're going to calculate the sides. We've calculated angles using the second function button and a sine, cosine, tangent, some sort of trigonometric function. Now we're going to learn how to use sine, cosine, and tangent to find us sides of a triangle when all we have is one side and an angle. So we'll look at the bottom of the page and we see when calculating the sides with trig, do not use the second function button. So when calculating the sides, we're not going to use the second function button. We're not doing the inverse. We've got an angle. We're trying to find sides. We're just going straight across. We are no longer using the inverse or the second function button. So we're not going to be using it. What we're looking at is still naming parts of a triangle. If that is our angle and we're looking across, we are doing opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. For sine, so ka toa, sine is so, which means it looks like so. So opposite over hypotenuse and the sine of the angle on the bottom, okay? So what that means, that it is the angle and then the sine button times the hypotenuse, if the hypotenuse is given, or it's going to be divided by the opposite if the opposite is given, depending on what we're looking for. Does that sound confusing? That's okay. We're going to do some practice ones just to see where we're at. So what if we have 45 degrees and 6, well, that's not going to work right out of the gate. Have you go and mess it up. 6 meters, okay? So I've got an opposite and I've got a degree. Realize that if we're using the sine function, the 45 is the sine, right? So it's underneath opposite. So what our equation ends up looking like is this: 6 over, because it's opposite, divided by 45 sine, right? The 45 in the equation, it just goes right before the sine. So in your calculator, it is 6 divided by 45 sine button equals, okay? Work your way down. 6 divided by 45 sine equals 6 divided by 45 sine equals, and that is telling you the missing part of the equation. So what that is telling you when you do that is this leftover piece. The missing part of the equation is the hypotenuse. That means by using sine and the opposite, you're going to find the hypotenuse. In this case, rounded to the nearest millimeter, it's 8.485 meters. Let's do some more practice and see if we can get on board. So what I invite you to do now is to pause the video and have a look at these and think about using the sine function opposite hypotenuse. We're looking across. That's opposite, that's hypotenuse. So now if we're going to do 5 over 40, because it's opposite over angle, and that's going to tell us what the hypotenuse is, right? The question mark. So 5 is the opposite, and 40 of the angle, which is sine, will tell us what the hypotenuse is. So go ahead and do that. 5 divided by 40 sine equals 7.778619134. So what is that in feet and inches? We get 7 foot 9 and 5/16 of an inch is my actual answer. Remember, feet and inches, we want to give measurements as many times as we can when we're answering these things, unless we're doing volume for weight or area to volume to weight, in which case you want to leave the decimals. We're always going to convert back to feet and inches for our answer. That way we can get a tape measure on these things. So 7 foot 9 and 5/16. Does that make sense? It does to me, because I know that that is the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is supposed to be the longest side of the triangle. And 7 foot 9 and 5/16 is longer than 5 feet, but it's not like 332 feet or something ridiculous that wouldn't make sense. Or it's not 0.0692 feet, which doesn't make any sense at all, right? So it's not some outrageous number. 7 feet seems pretty legit for a 5 foot height, okay? So now we've got across the other side there, 17 foot. We go across, we're looking now opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. We are using O and H. This time the O is up top. The question mark is up top, I mean. We're looking at hypotenuse and 35 of the angle, right? So this time we're just using the bottom section of the triangle. That's it. This vertical line means times. So it's 35 sine times 17. So do 35 sine times 17, 9.75, 0.799,418 feet. But again, we want feet and inches. We want the answer to match what the question is. So 9.75, what is that in feet and inches? It is 9 foot 9 inches. There are no fractions of an inch. It's just 9 feet 9 inches. Okay, getting it a little bit? Let's go on and do 2 more, and then we'll call her learned. Okay, 51 degrees and a 12 foot 9 side. That is opposite of the angle. And this is the largest side, which means it's always the hypotenuse, and the side beside the angle is the adjacent. And we want to know what the hypotenuse is. That's where the question mark is. That means we're going to use so opposite over hypotenuse, right? Hypotenuse. That's supposed to be an H, not a B. Hopefully you realize that that is not the baseline. That's okay. So probably now the hardest part is turning feet into decimal feet. Feet and inches into decimal feet. That seems to be the crux of all of these questions, is turning feet into decimal feet. You've probably picked up on what's going to happen with the trigonometry pretty quick, and it's still feet and decimal feet that's going to end up being our nemesis here. But what is 12 foot 9? 9 divided by 12 gives us 0.75. So our opposite is 12.75. And it is over top of sine, over top of 51 sine. We're always going to do the degree before the function, meaning the 51 degrees comes before the sine. And we do equals, and that's going to tell us what the hypotenuse is. The hypotenuse is 19.02334,374 feet. But once again, what am I looking for? 19 feet and 4/16. If you think that is correct, I'm about to get very mad at you. I had a discussion with the class. 4/16, you're never going to look at a tape measure and tell your partner, your journeyman, your foreman, hey man, can you measure out 19 foot and 4/16? Nobody in their right mind says that on a job site. So whenever you get 4/16, realize that we always need to simplify. What is 4/16 equal when we simplify it? The answer, of course, is a quarter. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So it's 19 foot and 1/4 inch. Okay. You could say 19 foot 0 1/4. That's fine too, but it's not 19 foot and 4/16. That shit has got to stop. Okay. Next one, we've got 10.8, 48 degrees, and we're using sine again. Looking across. Let's switch colors so that we don't get confused. Looking across, we see opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. Perfect. Opposite and hypotenuse we need to use. So it's multiply because it's on the bottom, and it is angle multiplied by hypotenuse, right? So it's 48 sine Kevin, sine times 10.8 equals, right? 8.0259641115. That's our answer, which is 8.026 meters. We round that 5 up to a 6. Perfect. That's it. So it's always going to be the degree behind the function. You're going to find out cosine and tangent are going to be the same thing. What we're learning is how to tell our calculator what to do, essentially. We're saying 48. What is the sine of 48? So 48 sine. That tells the calculator, turn 48 into a sine of 48, a decimal of 48, and then multiply or divide, or opposite divided by 48 sine. 48 sine times hypotenuse, so it's either divide by or multiply by, but it's always going to be the angle followed by the sine, the cosine, the tangent, depending on what function you're trying to use. All righty, we'll catch you on the next video.